Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to present to you the research paper entitled Reviving Low-Cost and Low-Tech Modes of Construction as a Method for Sustainability, presented to you by architect Hamdi Isutouhi and myself, Mennat-Allah. First of all, we would like to discuss why is there a need today to question vernacular architecture, especially in Egypt or in developing countries who suffer from the spread of urban sprawl and informal settlements, especially in areas which were originally agricultural lands. And we are going to discuss how a project with a familiar intervention can help in the preservation of the spread of the sprawl to overcome and demolish the agricultural land plots, which would affect the environment and affect the sustainable development of cities. Discussing the familiar architecture projects, we are going to highlight one of the modes regarding how sustainability with the three anchors of environment, economy, and social values, the vernacular architecture as extracted from literature regarding low-tech, self-initiated preservation of culture and identity through the help of community enabling training to allow for sustainable growth and to preserve identity, can provide what we call as the community-targeted vernacular architecture, achieving sustainable goals. Accordingly, we have been studying literature outcomes from theorists as old as Rudowski in 1964, who has debated that vernacular architecture is precisely the architecture without architects, until Salama in 2022, who presented traditional buildings as the reactionary architecture acting positively towards climate, culture, and social requirements. This has developed for us the outcomes of the literature regarding sustainability and its intertwining between vernacular and traditional architecture, using low-tech building methods to preserve passive energy techniques through self-initiated way of building, which would positively have an economic revenue on the settlement without the elimination of the rooted values and identity in the collective subconscious, especially in areas which has rooted architecture values that has been also surveyed and further extracted from several architects, scholars, and theorists. We have also highlighted the role of participation in vernacular architecture and local identity preservation, having sustainable architecture as rooted, informed, balance-seeking process to enhance the opportunities and possibilities for the local communities as stakeholders, where architects act as facilitators to get the best for the best possible solutions, which would help the community in preserving its local culture. In order to verify our statements, we have assessed a Nazla revival project in Fayoum. It was a tradition. It was the study has been qualitatively and quantitatively studied using qualitative modes from first-hand information from the architects, and also from first-hand information from different stakeholders and experts in heritage who have visited this case study. And as we are going to see, that Nazla has a very specific local identity dating back from the pharaohs and through the creation and the craft of pottery making. This has been featured in old Egyptian movies like Dua al-Quran, and this same technique of creating the pottery pots using ash and mud has been is still actually one of the economic capitals for El-Nazla. Accordingly, when the architect was asked to intervene in this specific location, he capitalized on this same pottery making technique of using for the buildings. However, the problems were regarding the sustainability of this traditional technique due to the cracks and of the bonding material, and also due to the instability of the roofs when they are made out of wood. Accordingly, research has been made on how to improve the construction technique to face the contemporary modes using two techniques. First was research implemented on the bonding material to enhance it and to avoid the cracks, and also through the creation of arches and vaults and domes using this same pottery unit. Accordingly, this would provide a better enhancements for the preservation, and this allowed the locals themselves to build their own interventions, and it revived this technique, and it was largely widespread through the experimentation and through the community participation in the design. We went to El-Fayoum recently and to this specific location, and we surveyed the different stakeholders, from the workers, from the children, experts in heritage, and the local community who were engaged so much in the project itself, and it became an anchor point and a magnet point to their location, especially that there aren't other economic features. The surveys were tailored based on the user groups they interviewed, and the results showed that the economic capital, the social capital, and the environmental capital were maintained through different approaches, as explicitly described and debated in the research, in the paper itself. And additionally, large quantities of this pottery unit is being asked for export outside Egypt. It has been a point of attraction, and the locals started to develop on ways to how to store and to export those units in different areas outside their own locales. Actually, the results, as can be explicitly seen in the research, were how the locals have been inheriting and adopting this traditional way of creating the pots for building, and also for their own use, and for the expansion of the industry, of the local scale industry, and the sense of pride and the sense of having this activity going on since their ancestors, and inherited to the children, who themselves are considered a strong addition to this project, since it is one of the magnets where they enjoy hanging out and getting involved with different tourists or visitors to the plot. Between the questioning of whether vernacular architecture is merely architecture developed by the people and through the people for themselves, or whether it is turning into a cliche of just adopting well-known domes and walls and techniques of wood. There has been a debate of whether architecture is a cultural product and whether we can present and extract the hidden assets in each locality without regenerating or reinterpreting forced vernacularization, which is not stemming from the local community. This can be evident in the expansions by some other projects in the area where walls and domes, however, in a tradition, in a more cliche or a more well-known modes of applying walls and domes, however, it's not really related to what this specific community is addressing as a culture product of their own. And in our surveys, also the locals were not really feeling this sense of bonding between the new interventions, and they believed that their own way of creating the space using the pottery pots was more valuable, since it is only addressed in Nazla in Fayoum. Finally, as it can be seen here, that several trips from students of architecture, from local tours, and from foreign tours are raising awareness around this location. And the locals themselves have been sensing how this affected and changed so much of their image of their district and of their neighborhoods and of their cities. And accordingly, they are themselves trying to capitalize on this way of familiar building and construction, especially that it is very low cost material, and with the help of experimentation and with the advancement of the bonding materials, it became more sustainable and more adequate for wider usage, rather than being limited to the specific spans, or not being durable for the weather and conditions of the rain and so on. This is the conclusion of our paper, and we hope that this sheds some light on how readapting or readopting vernacular techniques, however, the techniques which are stemming from the locals and being advanced in technology and taking into account the cultural products of the local communities, can be a real asset and can help a lot in the definition and the unique expression of communities in their own localities. Thank you so much, and we are looking forward to hearing your questions.